because of the monsoon last night, the pond filled about 20%. And on the way to the pond, there was some puddles, and there were spadefoot toads about an inch. I show them in a close-up, so I think you'll be able to get that. It's kind of, it put me in a really good mood for going to the pond. It was just the water and me and the Caucasian dove flock.
And this is David Boje reporting from the Ephemeral Wetlands Pond, where today we're going to be talking with Duncan and Julia in an interview about, do we know what water is? Do we know that we are water beings just as much as these aquatic fairy shrimp and spadefoot toads and these doves and all living beings are water beings on a water planet? Do we really know that we cannot be separating ourselves from water? And you know, as a student of capitalism, I'm interested in how the water bottle industry is complicit in the shotgun industry, the recreational vehicle industry, and how this is all draining and polluting the wetlands by the various industries, and for what reason.
Okay, so what I'm showing you here is codependency triangle. In my role as water protector, sometimes I become the water persecutor, and other times I'm the water rescuer, and I'm caring for the pond and picking up shotgun shells and etc., as we talked about. And sometimes I feel I'm the victim, you know. So I'm in all three roles. And the question is, what do I do about it? And it's to put the heart in the center of this triangle, you know. So I'll get out of my fear and anxiety and set some boundaries for myself and others in a loving way. It's a codependency thing, you know. And I think as people who care about water and Gaia, it's very easy for me to fall into these three roles, even at the same time. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So today was glorious, and Duncan knows that we had rain. He had rain in Texas. We had rain in New Mexico. And it's rather unusual because a lot of times you don't get rain this late in the monsoon season.
We're going to go and look at what water happened in the pond. And here we see little puddles left on the way to the pond through Arroyo Seco. And this kind of September monsoon is very, very rare right now in the mega drought of New Mexico. And it rained, the big rain monsoon happened about July 20th, filled the Ephemeral Wetlands Pond, and then, except for a couple little showers that mostly evaporated before they hit the ground, there was nothing.
We had the big rain 20th of July, and I was running with the rain, and the pond filled, and it was all glorious, and I was really feeling good in a caring, loving way, and just so excited to be running in the rain, you know?
Now here we see just the birds flocking, the doves. 3, 6, 7 of them just flew off. We are looking at a pond that's reborn through the rainfall that happened last night. That thunderfall actually knocked out the lights in our house for a few moments, and then the rain started to pour. The lights came back on, and now the water has partially filled this pond again.
Well, the pond has been slowly drying up, and then other uses of the pond have been coming in. And as a pond protector, water protector, I was getting a little bit angry, you know, to admit it. My buttons were getting pushed, and I sort of wanted to confront whoever's starting to burn mattresses again, and the beer bottles are accumulating, and people drove over the top of my heart, which I took that very personally. You know, the heart stone when they drove over the. So I did talk to this gentleman the other day that I said, "Where's your hunting license?" He said, "What? What?" And he like bounded out of his truck and he started coming down into the pond, and I was there with the puppies, and the puppies were barking, and so he's holding his ground, and he stops, and I said, "Well," and I said this in a loving way. I said, "I'd really like to know about what's the fascination you have with hunting." And he said, "Okay, it is the white Caucasian dove season. And there's an overabundance of these white Caucasian doves in America. And I'm culling the dove population. I'm doing that job that Fish and Game wants me to do. You know, and there's brown doves, and there's ones with black wings, and there's uh, some that have white trim on them. There's Eastern and Eurasian doves. But the Caucasian doves are the ones that are menacing the United States." Well, I started thinking about this because I shared this story with a couple of other groups, and they said, "David, there's no such thing as a Caucasian dove." And they said, "You think they might have been talking about you, that you're the Caucasian environmentalist, and you have two people with shotguns in a pickup truck that get out to confront you because you're confronting them." So, as an organizational scholar, system theorist, storytelling guy, I'm looking at the storytelling here that Fish and Game is putting out, saying that this is a wonderful season for doves. You've got a good weather out there till it rained the other day, and you know, get out there and get your quota of 24 doves a day, or 12 in some states, you know. And I'm going like, why are they doing this? What is the motivation? So I started doing the research. Is there an overpopulation of doves? Any kind of dove? No.
You know, I don't think any of these birds are being eaten for food because they're fairly obliterated by these shotgun shells. The reds are here in abundance this morning.
There's no biological overpopulation. So then I said, okay, is there a Caucasian dove? And I looked, and no. And I thought, well, maybe I can chalk it up. Guy's being polite. He doesn't want to say white. You know, in these times, politically correct dove talk is now a Caucasian dove. My sense was that this guy really was communicating well once he calmed down and I calmed down. We were actually having a pretty good exchange because he was saying, hey, there's a ranch down towards El Paso, a big 100-acre ranch. We go there dove hunting, but we didn't want to drive that far, so we come here to the pond to shoot doves. And I explained, I clean up the pond, and I noticed a lot of shells around. He said, not us. We put our shells in the pickup truck. We pick up our shells. We're good sportsmen.
Here you can see quite a few shell casings from hunters that are not obeying the rules.
And I said, oh, thank you for being a good sportsman. See how I'm out of my loving heart? How I'm out of the anxiety heart? I got the loving heart. Yeah, and he said those beer cans and that burn pile, those are those teenagers do that. They come here all the time and trash the pond. I said, yeah, I know. I clean up after them. Kind of sad they're back because it takes a lot of work because you burn pallets and there's nails and you burn the glass. this morning. I jogged to the pond, and there was a chair put in the bushes, an old lawn chair, the kind you sit in, not the you recline. And they'd shot a bunch of birds, and there was 50 to 100 shotgun shells laying around.
It would be really nice if hunters kind of obeyed the rules here in the wetlands and kind of picked up their water bottles, their lunch sacks, all of their bird wings, etc., and especially pick up all of these shots here.
Asking somebody if you got your shotgun license, if you got a license to hunt, that's a very confrontive question. You know what I mean? Asking them what fascinates you about hunting is a little bit easier for them to, it's invitational rhetoric. It invites them to share their story, you know?
What I come up with is in the story of separation, water is treated as a resource, and what that allows is for the State Land Office and the Bureau of Land Management to sell off and lease off parcels of land for urbanization. You can see the housing in the distance there as these lots are sold off, as this lot I'm standing on is sold off. And shopping malls are created and resident housing is created. What happens to the wetlands? 60 to 80% of it is gone. The watershed is shrinking here in New Mexico. I just attended an El Paso water modeling conference yesterday, and we're looking at scenarios. And the thing I noticed about the scenarios, it's treating business as a stakeholder, agriculture as a stakeholder, land development as a stakeholder, and those ecologists, such as myself, those Caucasian doves, are treated as just another point of view that fails to understand the importance of hunting and municipal water systems and urban development, and why the draining of the wetlands, the draining of the water table in the watershed of the Rio Grande, why that is all necessary. To me, it is a failure of the story of separation to account for the story of togetherness, how we are one on a watery planet, one with all species.
So how do we get out of it?
Well, the victim needs to set some boundaries and remember how to breathe and how to transmute their heart so they're not in a victim role. So that means setting some boundaries. And then I wanted to talk about being a protector but not falling into the persecutor role. And I think now that, Julie, I think the other thing is the spirituality helps us, to recognize water as a spirit. If we put water as a spirit in the middle of that triangle and turn it into healthy water, I think you probably want to have some good test kits if you're going to do this at home. I remember when Nadian, our horse, was on his last couple of years and wasn't drinking. We wrote, "I love you, Nadian. I love the water. The water is life," on his water bucket, and he started to drink. Now you could say, well, that's because you were encouraging him, but we were encouraging him in a lot of ways. And then we did the experiment with the water. Now, we didn't have a control group. We didn't do a lot of things. Do that yourself. So I just think that there's something to that. Your attitude to the water changes the water. What's water aliveness? And it's water that has a flow. It's recirculating. It's going into the ground and it's being cleansed. Wilma Dykeman talks about it in the French Broad book. The French Broad is the name of a river in North Carolina, but it's the river is washing the water by its movement and by its evaporation and the rain and precipitation. That whole cycle, water cycle, cleanses the water in amazing ways. So nature is giving us clean water. So all the different lakes, all the lakes of New Mexico and all the rivers have either mercury content or DDT content, PCB content. So now go a half a mile inland, and there's a spring there where the water is so pure and so alive. And the barn where we have our horses up in Caballo, I'll get a jar and fill it with the water for the horses, and drink it, because they've tested it. It's absolutely pure and alive and awesome. Go a half a mile further toward the mountain, and you got hot spring water. This water is just hot. Now, how can nature have three kinds of water within half a mile of each other? One toxic, one hot geyser, which has its thing. You don't want to drink that water either. And then one that's pure, perfectly pure. I got a couple of quotes for you that I'd like to read in. All right. So, Aldo Leopold, Land Ethics, published 1949, did an essay, A Call for Moral Responsibility of the Natural World. At the core of the land ethic is caring about people, about land, about strengthening the relationship between them. Now, a lot of people don't know his son is called Luna Leopold, Luna, I guess, after the moon. And he was a water hydrologist. And I've read his book. I got it here. You understand the water science cannot be separated from water management and water stewardship. So he came up with, I think, because he grew up in the Leopold family, he came up with the water ethic. The stream has to have change. In other words, the stream has to have a life. And what he's referring to is the flux in the stream systems and the flowing waters. It has to have a dynamic variability. And this is a lesson from Luna Leopold.
And this is David Boje reporting from the Ephemeral Wetlands Pond, where today we're going to be talking with Duncan and Julia in an interview about, do we know what water is? Water is life, water is spirit, we are all one. And I wonder why this is so hard to understand.